Have you seen this? More like Mars needs bombs.
Okay, do that one.
Well, it got a laugh, so yeah, that wins. Okay, cool. Welcome to Have You Seen This?
The world's only podcast about obscure, overlooked, and misbegotten media.
All discussions will be spoiler heavy.
You have been warned.
This show would not be possible without the support of our patrons. If you would like to support our show, join us at patreon.com/haveyouseenthis. Patrons get the show a week early, and $5 supporters also get access to our Discord. Or you can tip us at our Ko-fi. Visit the link in the show notes. Unfortunately, we're here to talk about something called Mars Needs Moms. Maybe you haven't heard of it because it is literally one of the biggest box office bombs of all time. And who else to speak about such dreck than your friend of mine, Bitter Karella. Karella, welcome once again to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here to talk about Mars Needs Moms.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Tim is breathing a sigh of relief that he didn't have to watch this. Although, I'll say this, it's no Polar Express, a movie which I revisited over the holidays and literally couldn't finish because I found it so unpleasant to look at. This isn't the worst piece of shit I've ever seen, but it is kind of bland. I don't know. What's your capsule take on it?
My capsule take is it's not bad. It's not bad. I feel like it has a lot of potential to be something much better than it really is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's it being the biggest box office bomb of all time is unfortunate because there's so many more deserving movies that should fail harder than this one.
That's really true. Like, I don't know if my mind has just kind of been melted by a lot of the shit that I talk about on the show, but in terms of bad filmmaking or bad movies, this barely scratches the surface. At most, it is kind of disposable, which is weird to say about a movie that cost $150 million to make.
I mean, my big question about this movie is I assume that it could only be this much of a box office bomb if it was ridiculously expensive to make this movie, which makes me ask, where did the money go? Because you certainly don't really see it on screen.
Well, if you watch the credits, you do see some of the behind the scenes, the production, the actual shooting of this, and this is another one of those Robert Zemeckis motion capture films. For whatever reason, Zemeckis was super into this shit, and audiences were up to a point. Obviously people didn't really like this, but for whatever reason, people saw that version of Christmas Carol that he made. I don't know off the top of my head how Polar Express did in the theaters, but when I revisited it, I noticed quite a few reviews from people talking about it very warmly as some kind of Christmas classic, which had me like, all right, I guess people have different standards for holiday classics than I do, but what else is new?
Well, I mean, it's one of those. It's like the Jesuits said: if you have a kid till they're 10, you have them for life, or whatever. Words to that effect.
Right.
It sounds very sinister because it's the Jesuits, but actually they weren't talking about molesting children; they were talking about brainwashing them. And that, I'm just saying is if you saw this as Polar Express as a child, you probably think, oh, this is, a great classic Christmas film, even though it's shit. Whereas, me being old, I watch like Garfield's Christmas and think this is the real meaning of Christmas, even though it is also its own brand of shit.
That's Karella's spirituality right there. Is just
it is
animated.
So I will
dreck.
say that Garfield's Christmas is way better than the Polar Express. I'm just saying it's not good. It's just a Garfield special, but it accomplishes what it sets out to do. Whereas the Polar Express is very, very stupid.
It
very
makes
bad.
my skin crawl. And it's also, like this film, it is adapted from a children's book. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. Polar Express by Chris Van Ellsberg, I want to say. Caldecott Medal winner, which means the pictures are really pretty. And it is a nicely illustrated book. It's just, how do you stretch this to 90 minutes? Which might have been part of the problem with Mars Needs Moms, because this one was based on a children's book by a man called Berkeley Breathed, maybe one of the people most responsible for forming my outlook and sense of humor as a child. He, of course, is best known for the comic strip Bloom County, which ran from, I want to say, like roughly 1980 to 89. Totally formative for me. I started reading it when I was probably too young to really get it, and it didn't matter. I learned a lot about satire and comedy in general from Bloom County. And I think you had a similar experience. Is that not correct?
That's right. I definitely patterned a lot after Bloom County. It started 80, ended 89, so it is literally the 80s official comic strip.
Yeah.
And even today, like, when I go back and read it with an adult's eyes, I can be a little more, I can be a little more critical of it, but I still think that Berkeley Breathed is a very gifted cartoonist. He's very good at he's very good at his craft, and a lot of the jokes still hold up pretty well. And after he left Bloom County, he did this weird thing where he was like, I'm going to do different comics, but then each one of them is basically going to just turn into Bloom County.
Right.
And then, because he did Outland, he was all like, I remember when he did that, he was like, I'm ending Bloom County. I'm doing a new comic. And everyone was like, oh, okay. And he's like, one character from Bloom County will be in the new comic. And everyone was like, oh, please, I hope it's Opus. And it was Ronald Ann for about 3 weeks. And then it was Opus, because everyone just wanted Opus. And then Outland eventually became Opus, didn't it?
Yeah, because there was a run of Sunday strips that were under the Opus name, if I recall correctly.
I remember that, yes. And that was around the time, I think, when he was starting to do children's books. So, and the thing about Berkeley Breathed is, if you read his books, he's done Wish for Wings That Work, Last Bassilope, those are kind of Bloom County related. He also did that House for Weird Dogs.
Oh, the Flawed Dogs book.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I think he did he do some Secondhand Lions, or did he just provide art for that? I can't remember if there's a book actually associated with that.
That I do not know.
Anyway, and then he did Mars Needs Moms. The basic thing is that you would think from the Bloom County comic strip that Berkeley Breathed might be a cynical fellow, because, he does like doing the satire. He does have a biting wit, but he's got a...
Yes, and it was the age of Reagan, after all.
It was. But it turns out Berkeley Breathed has a big ol' heart, and he loves being heartfelt. So his books, his children's books, tend a little toward the maudlin. And I haven't read them now. I remember when I first did read them, and I was, I think around a teenager at that point, and I was kind of like, even then I was like, he's laying on a little bit thick. I mean, but...
yeah, I think I still have a copy of Wish for Wings That Work somewhere. And it's a charming enough book. It was made into kind of a middling television special. But that is a thing I've noticed about a lot of his non-Bloom County work, is that it is schmaltzy. And you can really perceive his sort of, pet themes. Like he's definitely an animal rights person. And at some point, I don't know if it came from having a family of his own or whatever, he suddenly got super into these very family oriented kind of messages, which I think is what Mars Needs Moms comes out of.
Yes. So this was, like you said, this was a huge box office bomb. Nobody wanted to see this
Right.
movie. It was such a box office bomb that when the marketing guy, when Walt Disney marched all the marketing guys in, Walt Disney, of course, who was still alive at this point.
It was his head in like a glass jar. They dug it up
Yeah,
from under
they
the Walt and Mickey statue at the center of Main Street Disneyland. Not a lot of people know this, and you knew that you were really in serious trouble when they took out the head. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like they brought out the head, right? And like they had all the marketing guys lined up, ready to be shot. And Walt's head demanded an explanation for why Mars Needs Moms failed to deliver. And the marketing guys came back with the answer that people don't like Mars. They just don't like it. Nobody's interested in Mars. And I understand this because I worked in marketing for a little while, and it literally is just like the boss coming in and saying something went bad, explain why, and you just have to make
Right.
something up, you know.
Just something convincing
so
enough
they
to
said
get
that-
them off your ass for like another few days.
Yes, exactly. Because the reality is nobody understands anything. Nobody knows anything. It's just a big machine that keeps running, and you just have to yell at it.
Yep.
But anyway, they became so convinced of the fact that Mars Needs Moms bombed because of the word Mars that they changed the name of the upcoming movie John Carter of Mars, which is based on the Martian tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs, to just John Carter, which is absolutely insane.
Right.
Because now I'm a big fan of Edgar Rice Burroughs, so I would know who John Carter is. If I heard the name John Carter, I'm like, of course, that's John Carter of Mars. Who else could it be? But I don't think the general public was that aware of these 1920s pulp series. So they were all just like,
Right.
Who? John Carter. I don't know that Of Mars would have added a whole lot, but I mean, not doing themselves any favors.
It was certainly grasping at straws, and I believe John Carter of Mars, as it was once known, also went on to bomb horribly.
So and Walt was like, yeah, Mars or no Mars, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. People just don't like movies anymore.
Yeah, now put back my jar. I'm tired.
Yeah, Walt Disney responded to the failure of Mars Needs Moms and John Carter the same way that Jonathan King responds to that failure of We Need to Go to the Moon. See, people just don't like music anymore.
Deep cut. Check out our episodes on Jonathan King, the convicted pedophile and music producer. I'll link them.
You will be delighted.
Yes, it's a very weird story. But anyway, back to Mars Needs Moms. Definitely not the worst thing to take a bath at the box office, but doesn't really stand out either. In fact, I think I'm forgetting the movie as we speak about it. I remember the rough outlines, but maybe you can help me out by giving us the basic premise.
Yeah. Okay, so the basic premise of the movie is in a world much like our own, except populated by horrible, uncanny valley meat puppet type people who look almost exactly like us, but
Right.
not.
You can tell something's not right.
There's a child named Milo, and he is a huge piece of shit. The worst kid ever. He's disrespectful to his mom. He talks back. He won't eat his broccoli. And what do you know? A bunch of Martians come down and they kidnap her and they take her back to Mars to use her brain to program their mommy bots that they use to raise their Martian children. So Milo has to go to Mars and save his mom and bring her back to Earth before she gets her brain sucked out.
A rite of passage for any kid, honestly.
We all know what that's like,
I mean, we've all been there. I mean, I had to save my mom from Barbary pirates, but it's like a similar experience.
It's always the Barbary pirates.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't see them around much anymore, but there was a time when they were really big.
Oh yeah, I mean they were big for a while, um, all up and down the coast. I feel like this movie. I feel like I have never read the original book that it's based on. I don't know anything about the book other
Right,
than the
and
title.
I should
So,
also apologize to the listener. I did not seek out the book to compare the movie to the source material, but
yeah.
it's a book for kids. Does it matter? It's not like
Right.
it's not like comparing like the book of Lolita to Stanley Kubrick's version or the one with Jeremy Irons and Dominic Swain. But you were saying,
Well, I'm sure that this in order to bloat this story out to like an hour and a half, they added a lot. So I'm sure that most of this is not in the original book. But I don't think Walt's head was entirely wrong, thinking that the reason this movie bombed so bad was in fact the title. I don't think it was the word Mars specifically that did it. And I don't think I don't think it was even the word moms. I think that a different movie, possibly if this was a movie for adults and it was Mars Needs Moms, it'd be like, oh, that's a comedy. I'm going to go see that funny comedy, right? But for a kids movie, I don't think it works because here's what I thought, right? About Mars Needs Moms. I heard the title, Mars Needs Moms, and my immediate assumption about this movie is, okay, this movie is clearly I mean, obviously the title is a riff on Mars Needs Women, the old Beef movie.
right?
But it's based on a pre-existing children's book by Berkeley Breathed. It's a little picture book for kids. So obviously what's going to happen is this. I can tell you the plot of Mars Needs Moms. I'm just inventing this now, but I bet I'm 100% right. Martians come down and they kidnap moms because they want moms to like kiss them goodnight and tuck them in and read them stories and all that typical stuff. And he has to go and rescue her. But it turns out in the end, it's actually all a dream. It was all in the kid's head. And he learns an important lesson about how he should appreciate his
don't be
mom.
such a disrespectful little shit.
And this is basically the same like the Boss Baby. So this is like so my thought was like, why would I go see this movie? Why would I go watch a lecture? And I feel like that was exactly the reaction of everyone. So everyone just saw that title and they were just like, "Oh, I don't want to lecture about. I get that lecture from my mom all the time. I don't want to go to a movie and have to hear about how I should appreciate her more." So everyone just skipped it.
Right. Now, I will say also that if you take a look at Letterboxd reviews of this film, even the ones that are relatively positive are from people saying like, this movie fucked me up when I was a kid. It was so traumatic, which, fair. We've all been there. I could see how maybe it would be like a little much for kids. It still doesn't reach the levels of horror that you get from the hot chocolate number in Polar Express, which might be the most upsetting thing I've ever seen. And I've watched Singapore Sling more than once.
Now, were kids reacting like that this fucked them up because of the weird character designs or the emotional content in it about like, oh, my moms are getting killed?
I mean, it could be the mom in peril situation. There is a whole sequence at the climax where Milo is trapped on the surface of Mars without a helmet. That I could see how that might be scary for kids, but I don't know. It was like I wasn't young enough to be fucked up by this movie. Like that had already been done by The Dark Crystal.
So. Oh yeah. I mean, I believe I was an adult when I saw this movie for the first time. So,
Right. Yeah. So it hits different. And that's the other thing is that while I found myself like somewhat appreciating like there were a couple of emotional moments in this movie that work reasonably well, but they're the kind of thing that you look at and you go like, oh yeah, like that's a good story beat, that works. Like you're not like it. And everyone knows how I feel about E.T., but it's not a movie like E.T. that will make you cry.
Well, I might disagree with you on this one.
Okay. I'm a schoolboy. Teach me.
I don't know that it's tear jerking. So I don't know like that this is not an emotionally wrenching movie for your average adult, I'm sure. But the emotional beats I thought were pretty good. And I was actually surprised. I thought that there was one character in this movie that actually worked pretty well. And I thought the first time I saw this character, I was like, I'm going to hate this guy so much.
Let me guess. Gribble.
Yeah. So Gribble is when Milo goes to Mars, he meets a guy. There's a guy on Mars, named Gribble, and he's this big fat party animal type guy, and he claims that he's there as part of Ronald Reagan's secret anti-communist spies or something, but it's very clear that's not the case.
Well, it is plausible, because remember when they were going to do that whole Star Wars missile defense thing?
Oh yeah, didn't they bring that back? Called Space Force?
Yeah, sort of. It's more like the Space Force is more like the UN Spacey from Robotech. But anyway, you were saying about Gribble.
Yeah, so Gribble's whole thing is that he too was a child who came to Mars when his mom got, but he was unable to save her, and so he has lived on Mars as an orphan, hermit recluse for 20, 30 years, I guess.
Right. He has basically done what every male organism does when they are unsupervised. They basically become feral and they just play video games all day and live in their own filth.
Yes. I mean, that's exactly it. And because I went, and as soon as they introduced this character, I was like, okay, I get what's going on here, and he's very annoying. I mean, he's supposed to be annoying, so I think that was well done, but I actually did start really feeling for this character. I thought the emotional content of his story was pretty well done, because there's a bit where when Milo is basically trying to say that he wants to find his mom, and there's a video surveillance where he sees his mom, and Gribble's reaction is basically to be like, oh no, we don't need to talk about that, and turning it off and just trying to distract him with cool tech, bro. And it's watching it was oh, this feels very true to a guy who is been a hermit for 40 years and has never dealt, carrying tremendous amounts of guilt and pain after failing to save his own mom, and just cannot deal with reality. So
right. It also helps quite a bit that the motion capture technology has significantly improved since the Polar Express, because I don't think that the characters look that bad. In Polar Express, they're just incredibly waxen and creepy. Another motion capture film that Zemeckis was responsible for was the big budget adaptation of Beowulf. Remember that?
Oh God, I do remember
where they made basically, or tried to make photorealistic human characters, and they just ended up looking like dead-eyed mannequins. Now in this one, they have kind of split the difference between realism and a slight cartooniness, and it comes across much better, and the faces are a lot more expressive. And because the actors do really good work here, Gribble is played by Dan Fogler, Joan Cusack is good as Milo's mom. These facial expressions and character quirks really come across much better than they had in earlier Zemeckis mocap films.
Yeah, it's interesting. They got Seth Green to do the mocap for for Milo, but some kid does his voice.
Right. Yeah, because and that's it's kind of wild because and Seth Green has said that this was a really physically challenging shoot to do, because he's not on real sets, but he's rolling around and jumping and hopping over things, and then they decide wait a minute, he just sounds like an adult man, so we better get a kid to dub the voice, which the kid does credible work, so no disrespect there. But what the performance you're seeing is a combination of Seth Green's physicality and like the child voice actor, and they both do really well.
Yeah. I mean, the performances in this film are not its weak spot. It's like the acting is
Right.
all good. The the uncanniness of the mocap faces is, like you said, it's not as bad as like Polar Express. Like you watch Polar Express
God,
and it looks
no.
like something from a Tim and Eric skit, um, but this one, yeah, it's like it's not quite right. I think it's one of those things where you kind of wish they just had the Pixar faces instead.
Yeah, like if the characters were just like fully cartoony, like in fact the Martians in this look just like the ants from A Bug's Life,
Yeah,
the 1998
I
Pixar
am
film.
not a big fan of the Martian
So
designs in this movie.
they're, I and that's kind of a weird thing that we should also get to because I am also very curious to talk about kind of the gender politics of this movie, which caught me a little by surprise, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Like it's better than I thought because I was actually really bracing myself.
I think I feel like when I watched this movie that they kind of were like they were heading towards something and they realized, oh no, we can't do that. This is the year of our Lord, what, 2014?
No, like 2011,
Oh, 2011. Okay, well I think they were
an
like,
even less
look,
enlightened
they were
time.
making the movie and they were barreling towards a particular kind of theme and moral. And as they were getting close, they realized like, oh shit, we can't go there. It's 2011. This all the America is populated by new women. They're not gonna like that. So let's flip it around a little bit. Like right as we're going to the landing. So it's not quite. It doesn't feel like they quite went entirely like geez, and well, I don't know. We'll get to that, but the important thing is I don't like this Martian designs. I mean, Martians can be anything you want. You're making up a whole species, right? So they were like, all right, well, we need the Martians. We can't make them look too weird because, like, then people can't sympathize with them or empathize, right? And also, Gribble's gonna fuck a Martian at the end, so we don't want that to be weird. So we can't make it too odd. What if we just made them look like the ants from A Bug's Life? Okay, I mean, and it's
Yeah.
it's like that's. I mean, the designs don't offend me. They're just like so blah.
Yeah. But what comes across right away is, and this is a big part of the story, right? Is the fact that Mars is, in spite of being the
Mm-hmm.
war planet, it's actually a matriarchy.
Yeah, this is a okay. The matriarchy is a little tough to figure out what's happening here because from what I understand, they say oh, it's like okay, wait, we know it's not tough to understand. It's actually really easy to understand. Basically, yeah, the women run everything. They're up in their big Martian cities with like flying cars and guns and all that. And then underneath the Martian cities is a big trash uh, junkyard, and that's where the men live, like feral savages. It's basically that episode of Duckman where they have the big wall.
Yeah, and like I said earlier about the origin story of Gribble, the men live in the trash, which of course is where they belong
That's true.
because that's where men go, like instinctively. Now, one thing about this is that, and this is alluded to during the course of the movie, is the notion of separating the sexes of the newborn Martians and keeping the female ones and raising them with like robo nannies and throwing away, quote unquote, the male hatchlings or whatever. And of course, the mind immediately goes to, like, for example, the poultry industry, where you want egg laying hens. You don't have a hell of a lot of use for roosters or cockerels or whatever. So those basically get tossed away, ground up into cattle feed, or I don't know. It's actually quite upsetting if you think about it. Like the division of gender and then the wholesale discarding of an entire sex. But because this is a movie for kids, it's like, the boys, we just throw them in the trash, and they just do their thing.
Yeah.
In the trash below.
Well, yeah, because here's the thing, is like the girls up in the city, right? They're all raised by wire mothers, robo-nannies. But
right.
The boys get dropped down into the trash where they get raised by the nipple mommies, which is not nipple, the carpet mommies, the carpet mother. What do you call the wire mothers?
Yeah, the
carpet.
Yeah, the one the little monkeys wanted to hug.
Because the males in this society are the ones apparently who are the primary caregivers, since they seem to like raise the boy children who go down. So it's kind of, I guess there's kind of an inversion of traditionally which gender would be expected to play these roles, I think. I don't know. It's like one of those things where I was watching this movie and I was like, I feel like the movie thought this was really smart.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I suppose that it is a bit of an inversion that the warlike planet and the organisms living in these kind of like sterile, like fascist, like interiors are, actually the females. And the males are just living like a natural lifestyle, which ends up being very nurturing because, like, apparently the male children end up being very huggy. Like, they like hugging.
Yeah. It is just like real life. I feel like.
Well, they all grow up into those guys who, like, always say to you, "Hey, where's my hug?"
I'm gonna go to the guys that get the free con with the free hugs shirt.
Oh, God. Well, as long as it's not the one with the fishing pole with the candy on it.
I hate that asshole. I hate him so much. Yeah, so it's but the interesting thing about the Martians is this division of their society is a fairly recent development. It turns out that they used to just live like normal, like on Earth. They had nuclear families like we do, right? And shit like that. But then this one old bitch is like, I don't like that. I'm going to completely change society so that we just, throw away an entire gender into the garbage and invent these robots to raise the other one. And it's like, wow, that is impressive that she was able to accomplish that.
Right. And of course, this is this character, the supervisor, kind of the evil old crone.
Oh, she's such a bitch.
Of Mars, played by Mindy Sterling. Most of you will know her as Frau Farbissina from Austin Powers.
Oh, yes. This is the role she's she's born to play.
Just like a withered old bitch. Which, okay, like yeah, like what is this about? Like, were there like there were loving families until grandma came along and decided, like, no, fuck that? I don't understand this.
As far as I can tell, it literally was like there were loving families, and this old lady was like, I hate that men like having fun and dancing. I'm going to eliminate them. And it's like, huh. I mean, I guess, like, she is one of two old people on Mars. We do see a second old person. So I guess the second old person is okay with the change of society in this way. But the supervisor says she does it before all the other Martians were born, so I guess none of them knew this. I
Huh.
which implies I don't know what she did to everyone who was alive at the time when she did this thing. Like, literally, did she just genocide the entire society and start from scratch? Like, what happened? It's kind of fucked up if you think about it.
Yeah, I don't exactly know like what like how this would have worked or like what is being implied here.
I think if you think about it, this movie is more relevant to us than ever today. It's about an evil fascist overlord who genocides her entire society because she doesn't like men hugging. Think about it.
Huh. Yeah. That actually kind of fits. Who knew this movie was very
It
prescient? Like
was.
the 2011 audience was simply not ready for
I
it.
mean, it was too soon. It was ahead of its time, is the problem.
Yeah, no one wanted to look into our fascist
No,
future.
no. I mean, really, the main issue, the main problem with this movie is just that it's like you're kind of just like, oh, for most of the movie, you're just like, oh, they're running around on Mars.
Right. Yeah. Like the action is like fine, but it really does drag. And that's the point where the movie starts to feel more like a theme park experience
Yes,
than a movie.
like it is. Like I will say that like pretty much in this movie, I when Gribble was having emotional like breakdowns, I was like, oh, I'm invested now. But the rest of the movie, I was kind of
Right.
like, um, it's happening. It's for kids. It's fine. But like,
Right.
it's a lot of running and jumping, and you know, for kids. Um,
Right. And I'm sure that Zemeckis and Company had a blast making it. This came to us via Zemeckis' company Image Movers, or more accurately, an offshoot of that company that partnered with Disney called Image Movers Digital. And their whole thing was that they were going to do motion capture. They were really into this like incredible new technology, and Zemeckis was going to exploit it as much as possible. So they did the 2009 Christmas Carol, which I think has Jim Carrey voicing the lead.
yes.
And then they did this, and Disney pulled the plug. They didn't want to partner with Image Movers Digital anymore, and the digital offshoot just got reabsorbed back into the company.
Mm.
Yeah, that's how insanely destructive this movie was. It killed a company.
Wow. Again, it's like it's not that bad.
No, it's not like I know I keep going back to Polar Express, but it's not Polar Express. It's not Beowulf. It's not the Pinocchio that Zemeckis directed that everyone hated. Um, it's not it's not that bad, and maybe I was just caught off guard because the movie's reputation, when people even talk about it, is so
Yeah.
poor that you expect. I was bracing myself for this one. I was like, oh god, this is gonna be a
Oh
fucking
yeah.
chore. Okay, like it's 88 minutes long. Just get through it, and then it ended up being nothing special, but definitely not the worst thing I watched for this show, because I've watched
Oh
some
yeah.
shit for this show. Let's put it this way, it's no Goat Story, the old Prague Legends.
That is true. The thing is, like, as you know,
Yeah.
there's some bad movies that like, they're scrappers. They're like little like shoestring budget, nothing affairs, and you kind of feel sorry for them. You're kind of rooting for them. You wish they were better, but they're still fun that they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other movies, very like kind of big budget, tentpole Hollywood type films that are bad, and you hate them for it, and you feel like that they're an insult. That you were offended that they thought that you would like something like this, and then you got these
Yeah.
like Argyle. And Polar Express and
Ugh.
Beowulf were both like that. Like I watched those movies and I was offended that Robert Zemeckis thought I would like them. This one though, I watched it and I was like, oh no, I mean, I'm not offended. I'm mostly kind of like I'm checked out for most of it, but like when Gribble does stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm invested. But at the same time, he is so annoying that I feel like 90% of the people would be like, I don't care about this guy's emotional arc because like I was looking at it and being like, oh, I know why he's annoying because he has no mom to teach him not to be fucking annoying, and he's trying to avoid ever thinking or talking about that pain, and he's like, yeah, a hermit for 30 years, and he's obviously got ADHD and all these things, and I just saw his annoyingness as like kind of part of his tragedy. But I feel like most people watching would be like, I don't care, he's still annoying. So, and that's the main thing I find like really selling this movie. So, I can't really go to someone saying, hey, you might want to see Marcy's Moms. Why? Well, it's really boring, but there's this annoying guy who has kind of an interesting character arc.
Yeah, market that.
Yeah, it's like,
good luck.
It's I feel like, again, I also feel like they did have to kind of pump this thing up to be feature film length, and it's really more suited to be like a 20-minute animated for television special.
Yeah.
Imagine
this. Mm-hmm. Imagine this, but made by Rankin Bass.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like the difference between the old Chuck Jones Grinch and the Benedict Cumberbatch Grinch. Where it's like, we need to add an extra hour to this. So, by the way, it turns out that, like, the Grinch, I don't know, he has a tragic backstory. He felt invalid as a child or something. I can't even remember what the whole thing was, but they really, like... Was
there a Benedict Cumberbatch Grinch?
Yeah, you haven't seen the Cumberbunch Grinch?
Oh, shit. Wow. Oh, my God, there was. I see, because, like, the last one I remember was that mess with, again, Jim Carrey and... directed by Ron Howard.
Well, we are now living so far into the future that when I speak to, younger people and they're like, oh, I don't like that new Grinch. I like the classic Grinch. The one with Jim Carrey. And I'm just like, I'm just going to crumble into dust. Blow away.
You're like you're like in Dark Crystal. You're like, I am still Emperor, and then you just dry up and blow away.
Big mood.
We are all Skeksis.
Yeah, but no, seriously, this is like this movie. Yeah, there's really not enough you don't really need it to be as long as it is, because they were like, look, we got to put in all this theme park jumping stuff to show off the mo capture, because people are really going to be excited to see people running in a movie. They've never seen that before. So, it's a big deal. But, if you cut it out and just had the actual, parts that move the story along or develop character, then, yeah, it's probably more about, a good TV special length.
Right.
Which is, really what these should be, because you had the same problem with the Polar Express, when you're like, this is a 10-page picture book, but we need to bloat it up to an hour and a half. So here's like 18 terrible subplots about Mr. Conductor. And
like here the kid is on the roof of the train and he meets a weird hermit who's up there for some reason. It's like, wow, this is so Christmassy.
Yeah, and boy, just wait till you get to the North Pole. It is it is a weirdly abandoned, except for the Aerosmith elves that play at Santa's concerts.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But
no me gusta.
It's rare that you can that's why traditionally you would take these books and they would be the basis of 20 minutes of animation for TV. It's rare that you can actually get one of these books and make it into a feature-length movie that works.
Jumanji,
I think, is a notable exception.
Oh, shit, we used to jinx. Jumanji.
Yeah, Jumanji works. That one is a good one.
Again, Chris Van Allsburg.
Yep. But if you see The Boss Baby...
Another movie with really, truly weird world building.
Yes.
Like, how is this even supposed to work?
I mean, and that is all original to the movie, because the book is about a kid who's like, I have a new baby brother. My parents act like he's the boss. That's the end. That's the book.
Right.
It's and so the movie, they're like, okay, first of all, the baby actually is a boss. It's not just the kid saying my baby's like a boss. No, the baby is the boss. And now we need to explain that. And they worked backwards, and boy, they went some places.
And apparently people liked this shit.
And yet they did not like Mars Needs Moms.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know what the secret sauce was, but I'm not really the target audience either.
So one thing that they do in Mars Needs Moms, and I think we need to discuss the elephants in the room here.
Sure.
These Martian ladies have got the most incredible sculpted asses.
Yeah, and this contributes to another strange part of the movie that I was kind of trying to parse out the implications of, because yes, indeed, these are, well, like the Martian women or females are extremely, where they're narrow, they're as narrow as an arrow, and they're broad where a broad should be broad.
Yes.
These are intensely female silhouettes. And at one point, Milo has to put on basically female drag to infiltrate the above ground Martian facility or whatever. So he's got like these fake like wide hips. Now you notice that we're not saying anything about boobs.
No. Since this came out in 2011, this was Butch Hartman's world, and this is a weird thing that you see in animation a lot, where it's like, okay, we need to indicate to the audience that this is a woman, or even possibly a hot woman, but we can't put tits on her because tits are, too adult. Children can't see tits. It will make them die if they see it. So we need to do something else. And what if we give them a gigantic ass? Because women, they have tits, but they also have asses. So we'll just make the ass really big. And that way, everyone will know, oh, that's a woman, but I'm not sexually aroused because it's not her boobs are big, her ass is big. And big ass isn't sexy, big ass is funny. So it's okay for my children to see that and think it's because it's just funny. It's just a funny thing. They're not going to get like a fetish for gigantic asses by seeing all these cartoon ladies with giant asses. It's totally normal. It's fine.
That's right. Because people who are attracted to women definitely are never attracted to ample buttocks.
No, that would be strange. Why would such a thing? Why would anyone think such a thing? So anyway, these Martian ladies have got like, not like big asses actually. The asses aren't that big. They're just very defined.
Yeah, they have emphatically childbearing hips, even though apparently Martian females do not give birth in the way that Earth women do. Right up front, we see the hatchlings coming out of the ground. So I don't know how any of that. Yeah,
I think they were like. But well, it's like, it is interesting because it implies that the Martians do not they reproduce asexually somehow because they just butt up out of the ground, which then makes you wonder, like, that's interesting. Why isn't an asexually reproducing species have sexes?
Yeah, why is there any sexual dimorphism?
I also have to say that, like, I was a little bit high while I was watching this movie.
Good man.
Un poquito. So that may explain why when we're watching this, so I was watching this and there's like there's an elite force of like kind of stormtrooper type guards that like patrol the world of Mars Needs Moms and keep the society segregated on very strict gender essentialist basis, men here, women here, and this elite group of guards is called the Cis.
Right, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned it because I was going to get to that eventually. Milo has to put on female drag and is then chased by the cis.
You know,
What the fuck is going on here? It's 2011. I'm so confused.
Robert Zemeckis, he was ahead of his time. Wow, it turns out he's like an ally.
Yeah, like wow, good for him, you know? I'll forgive him for Forrest Gump.
More like Forrest Drumpf.
Dump. Oh god. Oh god, man, you like why aren't you huge on Resist Blue Sky right now?
I just realized they should call him. Wait, no, I got it. They should start calling Trump Forrest Trump. And they could say, like, and they could be all like, see, it's funny because, you know, obvious reasons, it rhymes and all that. But it's also funny because we're making fun of the mentally challenged. And Resistance Twitter loves that too. It's like, it's almost as good as, like, what if we called him gay?
Also, you could do really bad, like, GIMP, like, photo composites of, like, you know, Forrest Trump, like, jogging across America. Forrest Trump, like, being romantic with Jenny and then going to see her when she's dying of AIDS or whatever. You know, I feel like you could double or even triple your follower numbers with material like this.
What if you did that, but you put Putin's face over Jenny?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Like, shit. You forget it. You'll quadruple your followers because if there is anything that blue MAGA people love, it's Trump being totally gay with Putin.
I think also I just realized you wouldn't even have to do this in Photoshop. Now you just do it AI and they'd like it even more.
Yeah, because if is there anything that boomer brain people love more than like the smooth quality of AI?
Oh man, yeah, them boomers. Okay, but Mars These Moms. Yeah. So yes, there's a very weird like kind of it's we were saying that like Robert Zemeckis was very ahead of its time, but it is very of its time. I feel like these sorts of films are very, very dated because of their the gender politics in it. You can tell they're trying to be kind of avoid anything too aggressive, but not really sure where they're going with a lot of this.
Right, because and like I said earlier, I was bracing myself when I sat down to watch this because, you know, I'd read the plot summary or, you know, the plot. I'd read the log line, I guess. I knew the basic story that, you know, Milo was real sassy to his mom. She gets kidnapped. Like, Mars is matriarchal. And then Milo realizes, like, he shouldn't be such a little shit to his mom.
Yes.
And I was like, oh boy, is this going to be like some, like, paean to, like, you know, the intrinsic like nurturing quality of moms? Is this going to be all about how like men just can't be civilized without a female influence, et cetera, et cetera? And you don't really get that. Instead, you get this, and maybe it was because they were kind of trying to like toe a very thin line here. Like, you know, they don't want to do radical gender politics, but they also don't want to just be like, okay, well, this is what moms do. Moms raise children. Dad goes to work, or, you know, sometimes he parties in the trash, and, you know, men be like this and women be like this. You don't really get that either. There is a bit of a sop to men being nurturing and the idea of, you know, a nurturing family being the best thing for a child. It's super heteronormative because it's like you have a mom and a dad and an offspring. Like here it is in mural form, like painted on the side of, you know, whatever on Mars. But yes. Hey, you know, whatever. And I'm, you know, Disney is, I mean, we've seen how Disney acts about like queer characters today. Like they just killed an entire series, like, they killed an entire storyline in a recent animated series that dealt with a trans character. Like recently, like they weren't going to do like anything queer in 2011.
No. I feel like they were doing that thing where they were like, okay, look, we're going to make a movie. We do not want to make this controversial. We do not want to say anything that, you know, what anyone would spill their popcorn over, because we don't want to alienate a single possible viewer for this movie. And so they were looking for something that was pretty innocuous, and I think they were like, "Oh, okay, moms are good. That's a good one. Let's go with that. Moms are
Yeah,
great."
evangelicals can't get mad about moms.
Yeah, we're all mad about moms here. But then someone like in one of the meetings was like, "Hey guys, actually, that might actually be a that's kind of sending a message that women are just moms. They're just moms. That's all they should be." And they were all like, "Ah, shit, you're right. Okay, well, let's retool it a little bit so that even the fucking feminazi liberated women's bra burners won't get mad, and instead we're gonna have it be like, actually, a nuclear family with a mother and a father is best." We can all agree on that. In 2011, I think they're like, "Yeah, that sounds good. Let's go with that."
Let's do that.
Nobody could argue with that.
Yeah,
and it's interesting to watch in 2025 when, like, even the concepts of gender have collapsed so much that even a movie where it's like, oh, well, men go over here, women go over there, kind of starts to like fall apart.
Yeah. It's really weird. I really don't know what to make of the gender politics in this film. And that might be a failing on my part because I was sitting down to watch with a certain like expectation that was probably a bit unfair. And then when I was confronted by something different, I was like, and maybe that's what audiences did as well. But there isn't really anything in this movie that you can get like super mad at either. Like I was bracing myself to be offended, quite frankly, and I did not feel offended.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like even in 2011, look, I'm sure that all the like, I don't know, the real hardcore like lesbian separatists who still existed,
all
who
three
went to
of
go
them
watch this movie, would still probably in 2011 be like, "Oh, sure, yeah, nuclear family, that's fine. Man and woman, kids, that's what we expect."
The last two lesbian separatists, they left their yurt in Sebastopol, and they drove down to Sacramento to see this movie. And when they came out, they're like, it was all right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they heard there was a movie called Mars Needs Moms, and they were like, yeah, actually, it is interesting because Mars, of course, is not just the planet of war. It is also the masculine symbol. It's the man planet, where Venus is the lady planet. So, that adds a whole nother layer of meaning to this whole boondoggle. But the lesbian separatists are probably like, yes, it's about like we're going to like, it's about forcibly transitioning Mars, just like in the Misandrists or whatever movie that was. I don't know. We're gonna be watching the Sisters of Dorley on Mars or some shit. I don't know. Yeah, the gender politics of this movie are a little muddled just because they're not meant to be. They're not meant to be dissected. They're meant to like be inoffensive. So
yeah, it's because how like the first refuge of the idiot whenever one analyzes media is to be like, oh, it's not that deep, bro. Just watch the movie. I really feel as though this movie is verging on it's not that deep, bro. Just because Disney was I'm sure pressuring Zemeckis et al. To make like the least offensive story possible about a boy going to Mars to save his mom.
Yes. I mean, they're in the business of, of making money. Mm-hmm. They want as many people to see this movie as possible. So they're like, we are going to make it as bland and inoffensive and anodyne as possible. So you'll go watch it, and immediately as soon as you walk out of the theater, it just sloughs right off your brain. So you don't even remember anything to be mad about. It's the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. But it turns out that they flew too close to the sun. They made it, they played themselves. They were like, surely if this movie is so incredibly boring and forgettable, no one will be mad about it, and everyone will watch it and be happy. But instead, they'll watch it. Nobody went to watch it because it was boring and forgettable.
Yeah. They really they outfoxed themselves.
They were playing 12th dimensional chess and they checkmated themselves. So
Great job, guys.
That's why Walt's head had to have all of those marketing guys shot and buried under Space Mountain.
Oh man, I bet. Can you imagine? I bet the formaldehyde in his jar was positively boiling.
He was all like, he was so mad. he made. That's why he like. That's why Michael Eisner had to kill him by telling him that Tinkerbell was having Elmer Fudd's baby.
Yeah, Eisner, he had a pretty turbulent time period as Disney CEO, but he still had a few tricks up the old sleeve.
Yeah. He knew how to play the game, but there's a Martian character. We get a Martian Quisling in this movie too.
Yeah.
And I fucking hate this character.
Now this would be Key? Kai?
Yes.
Key?
I think it's Key.
Key, yeah, sure. K-I.
I hate her. She's so fucking annoying. I don't like. She's basically like, oh, she's a very similar character to Gribble because they're both like really annoying, frenetic, like ADHD characters. They're basically the same character, I guess. That's why they end up fucking in the end. But the difference being that, like I mentioned, that Gribble has all this like tragic backstory that kind of informs him and explains why he is this way and makes his like his arrested development man-child act kind of sad.
Yes.
Whereas Kay is just like, oh, what if a really annoying alien talked like a hippie?
Right, and I did see a Letterboxd review where someone accused the character of just being another manic pixie dream girl, and they're not wrong. And this is a part where I got annoyed because, well, I didn't hate the character. I was just like, oh god, more of this fucking boomer brain bullshit. Because of course, what does Key imprint on but some like sitcom about hippies that she sees from Earth? And so, everything's groovy, like peace and love, man. Like, oh, and by the way, what is love? It's hack.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of that was like, oh, it's like, oh, it's free love. I don't know. Yeah. Kay's learning about what love was like, it's very hack. It's very twee. It's very trite. She's, kind of a manic pixie dream girl, but yeah, what does she watch? It is like, it's funny because the thing about the hippies that she saw, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they were like, oh, okay, what if she just watched some like hippies do some stuff? But then it's like, oh, but that like would imply she's actually 80 years old, and we can't just say Martians age slower or something. That would be weird because she's gonna fuck Gribble in the end. So what if we made it into like a sitcom that she's watching about hippies? And so there's this random sitcom that she sees on Earth transmission, and it's called, by the way, Freaks on the Street.
I missed that actually.
Yeah, you only see it from behind the glass thing, so it's actually the words are backwards. But when the thing goes to commercial, it reveals the title of the sitcom "Freaks on the Street," which I think is funny. I'm just wondering. So they made a whole series about this. Is the implication? It's like, boy, it's really funny that these hippies have a van. Okay,
obviously an effort to cash in on the success of the Mod Squad.
Oh, was that contemporaneous?
It's a joke. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something that would pair with Freaks on the Street. But yeah, like so Freak on the Street, normal in the sheets? That doesn't make any sense.
That's what they call me, baby. I'm a freak on the streets, but a normie in the sheets.
Well, I can't speak to that last part, but you are very freaky on the streets. I have noticed that.
That's true. When I get home in bed, I'll be like, all right, baby, it's time to do it missionary style. But also through a hole in a sheet.
And I will not reciprocate. And you have to go to the menstrual hut after.
Yeah. It's like that's just the way it is. That's the way it's always been. Now go make me a roast.
Yeah, not many people know that Moody Ferret is actually Orthodox Jewish.
Oh yeah, yeah. That you gotta. That's why, as the alpha male head of household, you gotta keep her in her place.
Mm-hmm.
So the K also has a phenomenal ass, and the Martians not only have these like incredible asses, but they wear like leggings. So like you can like it's really like there's scenes where I'm just like I can see her entire crack.
Yeah, it's
This is I mean I'm not complaining, because
they all wear Lululemon and they are fit because they don't sell those pants to fat people.
oh no. Well, the thing is, like, these Martians spend all their time, marching in parades for like the supervisor or something. So I mean, like, they get their steps in, and I mean, I guess here's the thing: is I'll give the movie a little bit of credit here. They gave the Martians these designs like ants, which I don't really care for, but they made them digitigrade, right?
Right. Not plantigrade like humans.
So I'm kind of watching. It's like, oh, is that why they just have these incredible asses? Because they need the ass muscles to maintain upright posture. I guess that makes sense. Good on them for like Robert Zemeckis was like, look, we need an in-universe reason why these Martians have dump truck asses.
It's so funny because it's such a like American mainstream film approach to gendering characters. Because do you remember when we covered Goat Story, you and I were both taken aback by the appearance of the main female character Katie, because it's a movie from the Czech Republic. They don't have any kind of puritanical instinct about kicking up their heroines, so she is just nothing but tits and ass.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
It's the thing is like I recall a previous time when like you would still get tits in Western cartoons.
Such
I
as?
remember. I remember. In Disney cartoons, in the not Dark Crystal, sorry, the Black Cauldron, when they turn Fluter into a frog and they stick him in that one witch's like cleavage, you all know Madame Cluck. She's got giant chicken titties.
Oh yeah,
So,
and then there's that part where when in Black Cauldron, like they go to the castle and there's like a kind of like chubby dancer like doing a Dance of the Seven Veils or whatever, and there's a part where like her skirt fully flies up and you see her underpants and she is thick.
yeah. See, and that's the thing is like there's an entire cottage industry of like 40-year-old guys who are like mad that cartoons aren't like horny enough anymore, but they don't actually seem to understand that this isn't what they're asking for. Like they get mad about this stuff,
Yeah.
because when they do see like this old style like animation with the tits, it's like they get mad. If it's weird, but I don't know. I'm just saying is like we used to have tits in cartoons. Now we don't, and I see an entire society that's really mad. They want tits and stuff, but they're not working towards putting tits in cartoons at all. All they're doing is banning cartoons. Period. Seems weird.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I will say to both you and the audience that if you want to see some sexy dames, just go over to Max or wherever you get your Adult Swim content and watch a little series called YOLO from the one of the guys who brought you Smiling Friends. Because there were points when I'm watching that show and I'm like, did Karella help out with the designs on this? Because that is like a really prominent muffin top.
Oh, well, interesting.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying.
I guess I'll have to check out. I'll have to check out this YOLO. I mean, you only live once, so why not?
You really should, because the show is actually like really funny. But back to the sexed up yet curiously sexless Martians of Mars Needs Moms. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about this because it's so I don't know how to read it.
Well, it's because they don't have sex. They're asexual. Their babies just come up out of the ground, but they still have sexes, and This one withered old crone, probably mad because her uterus doesn't work anymore. Uterus that she never needed to work because they don't have babies. Despite all their baby-bearing hips, she decides to change society so that women get to live in a space city, men live in the garbage. And get nurturing while the ladies are all raised by an army of nanny bots. Which, by the way it works is they have to get a mom from Earth. They find a mom who's like, and bring her up, and they suck out her momness with a big machine that kills her, and they use that to program a fleet of single-use nanny robots.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, they have to throw away the robots after one use, and each nanny bot gets one Martian baby. So it's literally like a one-time use. It's not like they have one of these nanny bots doing the whole crop of them. They have to have a single one for every baby. It's like fast fashion for nannies or something, of nannies. It's I think, which again, which makes me believe that yes, the original book is 100% just a kid saying, "What if my mom got abducted by Martians?" Because they want her to read their stories and tuck them in. I should be nice to my mom, and they were like, "Oh shit, we gotta make up a whole society now," you know?
Right. It's not that deep, bro.
Yeah. So they made it up, and it's like, does it make sense? Not really, but like, it's for children. They're not going to be parsing this out. They're not going to be thinking about it. It's in 2011. Nobody is thinking about gender. It is pre-Tumblr.
And as it turned out, no one saw it anyway, so it didn't even matter.
No, I mean, everyone saw that like it was about Mars, and they were just like, meh.
And they were like, "Oh man, I thought I was seeing John Carter of Mars."
Yeah, it was a little confusing. I mean, it's probably going to see renewed life because, look, I mean, the reality is, are people that interested in Mars? Not really. I mean, Mars...
No, and especially not now. Like, because Elon must be like, "Oh, Mars, you gotta go to Mars." And it was like, yeah, you should go there and stay there.
It is really funny how literally he is the only guy who wants to do that.
Yeah, like, does James Cameron even want to go at this point?
Yeah, I feel like Mars, it's one of those things that, like, yeah, it was big in the 1950s, like everyone is, "Oh, Mars, Mars, Mars." But like, that's played out, that was a fad that did not last. It's like, like remember in like 2011 when we all talked like pirates?
Ugh.
That didn't last.
Right, thank God.
But so yeah, Elon's a little behind the times with the Mars thing, I guess, because it's. I mean, I guess it makes sense because he can't. What's his alternative? He can't go on about, like, "We're going to live on the moon." People would just laugh at him. Well,
and it's also like his taste in memes. It's like fully 15 years out of date, at least.
Oh God, he sucks. I'm glad I live in America where we're still allowed to say that.
Well, I can't wait to vote him out any day now.
You know what? Any day. You tell me when the next vote is, and I'll be there to vote.
That's right. And people tell me, like, voting matters. You have to go vote. And I'm like, you know what? I'm way ahead of you. I'm voting right now as we speak. I'm voting as hard as I can. I can feel it working.
You know what? I'm voting. And you know what? Don't shy away. Look at it. Look at it. Isn't there a load off your mind?
Oh, I just got added to like 5 more Blue Sky lists, I bet.
Are you also on the Stealers and Rapists list?
That was wild, dude. I don't know where that came from. I like the list that you're on that was just called Yuck. I'm probably on that list right now, but
What can I say? People. I have a lot of haters.
Yeah, I mean, you're a strong drink. You're not for everyone, but the real heads know.
I am. No, that's true. You know what? I didn't come here to make friends.
Mm-hmm. You came here to talk about Mars needs moms.
That's right. Mars. We got them. Mars needs them, but they don't anymore because at the end they reform the society by doing that thing that they always do in cartoons and fully feature length animated films, where they're like, hey, society, it turns out that like you're bad, and here's a picture showing the guy, the leader doing a bad thing.
Right.
So they all turn against the leader, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That works every time.
It's a thing that like happens a lot, and like it's funny because it really shows, I think, the how ingrained the idea is that they're still making movies like that in a post-Trump era. Where it's like, what if we showed, the leader's doing a bad thing? Oh, good thing the society's turning against him. Yeah, that's realistic. But in this one, it's not even the leader doing a bad thing. It's literally, she's like, here's a picture of like a family. I saw a cave painting, and it's got a mom and a dad and a baby, and then all the cis look at that and they're like, you're right, gender isn't just a construct. We should reform society, which and that hasn't happened in real life. So
no, we're still in turmoil, but maybe we just haven't found the right picture. Now, is it just me, or, and I don't know any other way to say this, but the male Martians who live in the garbage, is it just me, or are they like weirdly afro-coded?
Yeah, they've all got dreadlocks.
Yeah, like they have dreads, and there's like, they love color. That's another thing that distinguishes them from the surface-dwelling females, is that they've painted themselves very colorfully in like red and green and yellow. And it's like, I'm like, they look like they're supposed to be like African.
Yeah, they kind of did that thing. It's like, oh, they're very tribal,
Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, because also the way that they kind of made them all hairy, it's like they also look rather ape-like.
Yeah.
And I don't think these were intentional. I don't think any of this was intentional, but it's one of those things like when you watch, the George Lucas Star Wars, and then like Watto comes on screen, and you're like, huh.
You're like, wow, I didn't realize this movie was produced by Der Sturmer.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, where it is funny in the sense that like maybe it's telling about where we were in 2011, that Disney was like, okay, look, we have polished this movie to a fine shine. We are 100% sure that there is not a single like fucking bitch ass feminazi out there who can like watch this movie and get her cunt all up in a twist. Yeah, all those bitches are going to be totally happy with this. What about these like weirdly colored African ape people? Oh, those are fine. No one's going to notice.
Maybe they were like, oh, we ran the numbers, and black people are just straight up not interested in this movie, so we're not going to worry about it.
Well, as Mr. Plinkett told us, black people don't really watch science fiction.
Right. And who am I to argue with Mr. Plinkett?
That's Mr. Wow, I can't believe that Mike Santa Claus was so racist and said something like that. I was just quoting him. That was not me. I actually believe that I believe in a rainbow coalition, and that people of all races, colors, creeds, sexes, ages, religions, and can get together and watch science fiction if they want to.
Mike, you just somehow got defunded by the federal government. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, God damn it. What I meant, I should not have...
Too woke.
Now what am I gonna do? I gotta work in private industry. I gotta make that jump from the weary gelding of public service to the rampant stallion of private industry.
Another man crushed by wokeness.
I mean, but seriously, I do think that like I do believe that like black people should be allowed to read science fiction and to enjoy it. I believe in that, and also I was going to say I even see color, because it doesn't matter to me if you're black, white, or red, white, and blue. I'm just, I I'm just that magnanimous.
I thought for a minute that you were going to say, I think that black people should be allowed to see shitty movies.
You know what? I stand by that too.
You know what? They should be able to make that decision for themselves because, you know, they have agency.
That's right. I believe in freedom of choice.
That's exactly right. Now let's see.
At the ballot box and at the box office.
Okay, now where were we? We addressed the male Martians, which is like another thing which is weird about this movie, and I don't know how to feel about it. I guess we should also talk about the big emotional climax of the movie, which is where Milo's mom makes a noble sacrifice on the surface of Mars.
Oh, yes. I 100% thought that she was really going to die, and then that would be kind of the part where it gets wavery and Milo wakes up and turns to the screen. He's like, I'm so glad my mom's not actually dead. I should be nicer to her. And so should you.
Yeah, it's not quite as simple as that. It ends up being kind of like a tag team rescue operation by Milo and Gribble. Maybe a little bit of a redemption for Gribble because he gets to help save Milo's mom where he was not able to save his own mom, which gets like sadder the more I think about it. Like, Jesus Christ.
It is very heavy for a kid's movie.
Yeah.
I actually thought that, like, I really did like that scene because not only is it kind of Gribble's redemption, but it was set up earlier because we saw that, you know, he had brought when he was trying to save his mom, he brought out an extra helmet and he ended up leaving it there. And so now, 30 years later, when Milo's mom needs a helmet, he remembers that it's right there and is able to save her. And
set up
I mean, even like later at the, and so yeah, I actually this got me a little. And then when they do go home, and Milo's mom just says to him like, "Your mom would be proud of you," and you know, he doesn't. He kind of like, you know, blushes and get you know, as he got on the ship. And I was thinking about that. I was like, you know, that's an extremely cheesy line, but for a character like Gribble, that would be incredibly powerful. And his reaction like really rings true, just how overcome he is at that point. So. I really wish that he had been in a better movie because I feel like the character is got so much. You know, he's it's an interesting. Again, you know, I'll say this again. Perhaps it's a gendered thing, but you know, seeing a male character, you know, who kind of how he deals with his trauma and grief, which is mostly by completely like distracting himself and trying not to deal with it, just not being able to deal with any sort of real emotions. So even to the end, he kind of has to, you know, he still his relationship with Milo remains very much like, hey bro, we're bro, you know, that very bro type thing. Because it's like, it's interesting, just like, yeah, I feel like this is a guy who like he is bad at dealing with emotions, and this is, you know, this is as straightforward on the topic as he can get.
Yes.
So I found it a fascinating character, and I just thought that like, it's too bad he's in this boring ass movie.
Yeah, it's definitely a strength of the film. They give the character a nice journey, and the movie also tells us that men can in fact be emotional and be nurturing.
Yeah, for 2011, I mean, it's, I won't say like cutting edge, but it's like, you know, the sort of thing where, you know, if you brought your kid to the movie, you wouldn't be afterwards like, I'm so mad about that. You know, you'd probably be like, that seems like a good message.
Unless you write for the National Review or something.
Oh yeah, but those guys, you know, they're just mad about everything. They're like, this movie is, well, you know, they do the thing where they're like, did the movie fail? Well, it must be a lib movie. It's bad.
It's a real shitty publication.
Did it succeed? Well, we got to find a reason why it's conservative.
Yeah. Oh, this is actually like one of the great conservative movies of the 2000s because they affirm the role of mom. And in fact, Dad's kind of an afterthought because he's like on a business trip for the entire movie.
and I really like when they have that entire disposable fleet of nanny bots, because it really shows that, like, all those like tree huggers want to tell you that it's bad to do that sort of thing, but it's actually on Mars. It's not a problem. They have an endless fleet of them.
Well, we haven't even touched on that. Like the implication of these, I assume, sentient nanobots is basically this like disposable workforce.
Yeah, there's they do not touch that one with a 10-foot pole.
No. Yeah, to be fair, it's probably outside the scope of this movie.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to dislike this movie. It's hard to really. It's a movie that, like, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's not horrible.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Zemeckis.
Yeah, I mean, it's got stuff to recommend it, but it's definitely just one of those things that, like, it would just be another movie if it didn't have this reputation as, the worst box office bomb of all time. In which case, I guess, again, it brought together people of all races and creeds to agree that this movie was not worth seeing. It's a movie.
It sure is.
It is funny when in the credits they show you the mocap stuff.
Yeah.
And that just made me feel like, when I saw that, I was like, that's kind of like when you go to see a movie and right before the movie, the director, they show a little clip of the director basically saying, like, I hope you like this. We worked really hard on it. And you're just like, oh, no.
Please don't be too mean to us.
Yeah, like, I think they were like, we made Marzi's Moms, and they screened, and they're like, yeah, people aren't going for this. Better put that, like, mocap footage, behind the scenes mocap footage in the credits, so people will know that, like, we really worked hard on doing this, so they really, they should really appreciate that they're seeing something, like, so cool. And that is the thing about this, is, like, mocap is really not that interesting, because it's like, oh, you don't need to animate a guy jumping because you just have a real guy jump. I mean, I guess that's nice, but I mean,
sure. And I mean, it certainly has its place in film. I mean, I think really what put motion capture across quite a bit was Andy Serkis's Gollum in
yes.
the Lord of the Rings films. That was a very sophisticated use of the technology, and the performance really came through on the screen. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know what Weta was working with as opposed to Image Movers. I mean, you would think that Zemeckis would have gotten, like, the best and the best, and that was 2011 as opposed to, like, the early 2000s. I don't know. It's academic at this point. Like I said, it is less uncanny than Polar Express, which to me is just a severely unpleasant film to look at. This I can stand. I watched the whole thing. Let me put it that way.
Polar Express is very bad, and there's a lot in it to be bad. There's a lot of bad stuff in it. Like, the great thing of Polar Express is, like, yeah, it's a 10-page picture book, and they're like, we need to pump this up, make it into an hour and a half. And they did the thing where they decided, what if everything that we added to the book was bad and diminished the original story? And they were like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. So that's what they did. And but one of the funniest things about it, I think, is there's an annoying kid on the Polar Express played by Eddie Deezen.
Yes, and wherever you are right now, Mr. Eddie Deezen, we hope you're doing well.
Yes. But what I always find funny is, like, in all the reviews for Polar Express, you just have people who hate this character. They hate him so much. But what's funny is they've all decided he's Jewish. So there's like a million people saying that, you know that Jewish kid on the train to meet Santa Claus on Christmas Eve? I hate him. And it's like, do you really do you think he's really Jewish? I mean, It's funny because it's obviously they were like, oh, there's an annoying kid in this movie. Clearly he's Jewish because I'm anti-Semitic.
Right.
But like, it's just funny. They're like, look, the movie is being very loud and clear. This kid is probably not Jewish. I mean, I don't think he would be going to see Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. You know.
Well, people love anti-Semitism so much they're willing to completely overlook the fact that it is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's just because they were like, yeah.
And in fact, isn't it the case that you did a comic kind of parodying the Polar Express thing, and you do address well, I don't want to say the Jewish question.
Yes, I do.
It actually is very clever because in the version of and this is a comic called Fire Brat. In your version, like a Jewish kid does end up on the train and is like, "What the fuck am I doing here? I'm Jewish."
Yeah. It was very clever. You should all go out and buy a copy of this book, by the way.
Yeah, you should all read
That's
it.
the name again.
I will link it in the show notes.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
But yeah. But anyway, is there anything left to be said about Mars Needs Moms?
You know, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like I was very impressed with the whole Gribble thing, which, you know, I was really prepared to hate, and that surprised me with the how heartfelt and real it was, and how it really did work, and but then you also have to sit through like that fucking annoying ass alien with her fucking hippie talk, where she's like, "Oh, I'm a manic pixie dream girl, and I love color. Whoa, well, color's not allowed here in Martian land." And it's like, boy, really, the commentary is really like, I mean, you're really sticking your neck out there, Robert Zemeckis.
Whoa! You know what else this movie predicted? It predicted those weird like influencers who like want to raise their children in like this like sterile beige environment. So they have to, you know, like all their entire decor is just like entirely neutral because of aesthetics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're basically trad wives, except
the female Martians are like sad beige lady influencers.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe if they embraced the rewards of motherhood, then you know, that wouldn't be a problem. Like a woman should.
That's right, folks, and that's the lesson that we want you to draw from tonight's topic. Is, you know, just give in, be a mom, forget it.
Bitches get back in the kitchen, as they say.
That's exactly right. Well, I'm going to go make some brownies. How about you?
Yes. Well, no, I'm not going to make brownies myself. I'm going to go yell at my wife so she does it for me. Because I'm a man.
That's right, King. This is streaming. I think it's on Amazon and, like, I want to say the Disney Plus platform. I don't know. Whatever. Read the book. I don't care.
Get your ass to Mars.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you can show your support by going to patreon.com/haveyouseenthis and make a pledge at the $2 or $5 tier. $5 a month gets the latest episode before everyone else, plus access to our Discord, where we're always arguing about movies. If you'd like to give us a tip, our Ko-Fi link is in the show notes.
I was going to say, the Normie in the Sheets is now like 24-hour it's adult sex role-playing thing. Cut this out. This is bad. I'm not even knowing what I'm saying anymore.